Thank you. I'm turning a whopping 39 tomorrow, so it makes me feel still young. Yeah, I got into this business about 12 years ago. My undergraduate was in Latin American Studies, so I had plenty of classes in this college here. I was thinking I was going to do international studies, and instead, once I got into the MPA program, found out how incredibly awesome cities are and how much they do and how impactful they are and how, well, I'll kind of show you all of that. Decided that that was kind of the thing for me, and that I could raise a family and provide for them and still do meaningful, impactful things. I have 4 kids, ages 14 to 9, and my oldest is a daughter. The rest are boys, so I love being around here. Grew up in Orem. So when I first started in this line of work, the administrative assistant of Lehigh came over to me and she said, you know, we're going to do this great shadowing thing with the local schools, elementaries and junior highs, and they want to come and, you know, see what you do. And so how about we have one of them follow you around? So I was excited, naturally, and I said, great, you know, I can show them all these cool things that I do. And so then the administrative assistant asked, so, you know, what do you do? And as I began to explain, you know, all of the spreadsheeting and presentations and analytical sorts of things that I did, she started to nod off within the first minute of that explanation. So I quickly learned that, you know, I've got to show you, I've got to keep this interesting. So if I do see you nodding off, I'll just pretend that we're at BYU. You're just praying for me. The agenda here. I'll go over kind of overview of what city government is specifically, some of my really more recent experiences that have been really fun and cool, and then give you some advice. Now, my friends, when, you know, I tell them I work for a city, they say, oh, you know, you ever seen Parks and Rec? And they joke with me and say that I'm the Amy Poehler, you know, of the city of Orem. But Amy was actually the assistant of just the rec department. Now, the rec department does report to me, but I was the assistant city, or I am the assistant city manager, which is the guy on the right there. And the library reports to me is one of my duties as well. So let's get into the fun stuff, org charts. So this is an org chart of Orem. You know that there's different forms of government on the federal level. Cities have different forms of government as well. City of Provo has what's called a strong mayor form of government. City of Orem, however, has a manager-council form of government. Essentially what that means is that the mayor has delegated the chief executive officer duties and decision-making abilities to the city manager, and the manager then reports to the entire mayor and council, which is a body of 7 people. And then, you know, they make policy decisions and direct him, and the mayor kind of chairs the council. In dark blue there, City of Orem has a bunch of different committees and commissions that are volunteers of Orem citizens. Ranges from people who help us overlook our public works and our transportation, and even doing events for Memorial Day. And so really wide scope of things that we involve the public in at Orem. So then you see there below, there's a number of different services that the City of Orem provides. And I'll make, again, extra note here, cities provide the things that you need and use on a daily basis, and that's what makes it fun. And again, it's very versatile, wide range of different services, everything from police and fire to parks to water to sewer, kind of like I said before, recreation, library. So we do a heck of a lot. One of the things that's fun that kind of reports to me is what we call economic development. So whenever there's business growth, or we're trying to attract business growth to the City of Orem, I'm involved in that. University Place is a great example of where we've seen a lot of growth. Essentially, the city encouraged and worked with this development, what was the mall before, and encouraged them to invest an extra $500 million into improving. So before it was just a mall, we wanted them to bring in a bunch of Class A office, some park space, some entertainment, some hotel, in addition to kind of residential. So make it kind of a mixed-use thing. Previously, you may have driven through Orem on State Street and saw a big, huge, unfinished building that was close to our city center. Again, economic development kind of spent several agonizing years trying to get that into, essentially the hands of a new owner and developer that had the financial means to finish the project and make it vibrant and lively again. We work a lot with UVU. They're up to 40,000 students now. Most recently, I was mentioning to Matthew Clark that the city kind of worked with UVU and with surrounding homeowners to help essentially get a new student housing project done, 1,600 beds that'll go there. UVU is kind of been known as a commuter school, as you may know. So this will be kind of the first, essentially, student housing that's right next to the campus there. So cities provide a lot of things that are underneath the ground. So this is a picture of a water tank that was built up in the kind of the northeast portion on the hillside up in Orem. And we provide on the opposite side water waste treatment. So we can keep moving on from there. We call it wastewater so that we don't have to call it something else. We're heavily involved in transportation. City of Orem's been doing a lot to improve our road system. One of those things is to try to plan or re-envision what State Street looks like. Right now it kind of acts as something of a wall because it's really hard to cross as a pedestrian. And so we're looking at adding kind of medians and landscaping along the corridor and then help get buildings kind of closer to the roadway. Then all that's supposed to kind of help improve the walkability and aesthetic appeal of that corridor. And we work with the state to do that. You guys perhaps know, because you can use for free, at least for the next few years, the UVX, the bus rapid transit system. So that was a kind of a team effort of Orem and Provo and the state and UTA to kind of make that all happen. So this year, Orem turns 100 years old. So it was incorporated in 1919. Before that, it was called the Provo Bench, but incorporated in 1919. There you see a picture of me with Mr. Alan Osmond. I should have embedded the song. I convinced him to make a song to celebrate our centennial, and it's totally cheesy, but it has to be cheesy because it's a city government song. Sent this picture to my mother-in-law, who historically doesn't necessarily consider me a real close friend. So this really was a super bonding thing for us because she attributes the Osmonds as the reason why she converted to the church. So immediately went from sort of stepchild status to favorite son-in-law. Cities provide community events. We do a SUMMERFEST sort of celebration in the summer, and you may have, if you were ever driving along State Street during the winter here, we do a big kind of lights-on event, previously called WINTERFEST. This kind of starts to introduce, and I'll get into what I think is especially cool and meaningful about city government. One thing that has been maybe a recurring theme over really like the last dozen years since I've been in this line of work is getting away from the old post and platform playground systems and transitioning to these more progressive cutting edge playground systems that essentially force kids to be more active. We say they have a higher play value, so that you get more out of the playground, more bang for your buck. It's kind of fun. And it's that kind of focus that helped us build the first all-together, what we call all-together playground in the county. And this is a playground system that allows children of all abilities to be able to have fun at a playground system together. So it had to be both fun for those with no special needs to play with their, siblings, friends, neighbors that may have disabilities or special needs. And and it's accessible by those, whether they're in a wheelchair or whether they have kind of sensory sensitivities. So it was a super fun project that got the community really engaged, and we got a ton of community help, both financially and in hard labor. If you don't mind, one little anecdote. One of the times where I can truly say, that I really kind of broke down crying in a city council meeting, of all places. Usually it's, kind of boring. But this, as we were kind of building up to this, a preschool came in. And the preschool teacher explained how her class of preschoolers had spent 2 weeks doing a lemonade stand so that they could earn some money to donate to the All Together Playground, because they had a little girl in their class that was paraplegic, and they all went to a playground together, and the whole class could see how difficult it was for their classmate to access the playground systems. And so then they did this lemonade stand, and they accrued almost $1,500 over a 2-week period to donate to the playground. Super, super incredible. One of the things that got to do recently was add a splash pad, kind of cutting edge, cool splash pad in the north part of Orem. And it was kind of fun. My son is right behind the mayor there, and it wasn't done on purpose. Didn't stage this, but he's kind of a fun, precocious child. And when he saw his picture here on the front page of the newspaper, he said, "I'm famous, Dad." So it's fun. It's a fun line of work. Most recently, this last November, we went through a process of trying to educate the Orem citizenry about the possibility of using property taxes to build a new auditorium that's adjacent to our library, and then also to rebuild the significant majority of our rec center. And what was really cool about this was that even though property taxes, you may have heard your parents, or maybe you even pay some directly yourself, it's like the most hated tax. But we kind of went through this big educational process with it, and in every public meeting we had where the public came and kind of expressed their opinions on it, every single opinion expressed was in support of this project, which Quinn can tell you that was really rare, and was really super encouraging and inspiring, frankly. Because usually there's always those that are kind of adamantly opposed or in favor. But this one, it was really kind of this grassroots effort that ended up being successful, and so it was pretty neat. Never one to miss an opportunity. I took a controversial MAGA hat and put over America Fitness Center and Library Hall, and kind of made a joke of that as part of this bond effort. And then had a picture, and I kind of used this picture in multiple presentations. On the left there is my nephew. He had won an award by through the Freedom Festival at the age of 11 because he made this painting of the American flag, and now it's up at Orem City Hall. It's kind of fun. Okay, so let's get into, I'll kind of transition here from experiences and kind of draw some advice from some of that. As mentioned, so I'm kind of the number 2 staff person at the city of Orem. So as you kind of get into the workforce, obviously you're going to work with wide range of people, and maybe at times some complaint or something negative will come up that you just aren't going to like about your boss, or maybe a supervisor, or maybe your boss's boss. Something that I've learned is to try to just be 100% positive. In fact, I can share with you, I remember President Nilsson coming to my mission, and I remember him saying, be 100% positive in your letters to home, and he promised us that great blessings would come from that, and in turn applying that into the workplace and into the work I do, and replacing negative, complaining, murmuring thoughts with instead the silver lining or the lemonade or the solution. It makes a huge difference, and I find that showing that kind of trust and loyalty and solutions-oriented attitude to my boss and my colleagues, I find that I can get a whole heck of a lot more done, and that's well beyond what I might have originally imagined. See there in the middle, so for Halloween at our employee party this last year, I was Orem's biggest fan, so I had all of my Orem swag and gear on. Just a plug in there for Napoleon Dynamite. He wasn't running for president like Pedro, but he was the loyal number 2, went out and did the dance that then made the win possible for Mr. Pedro. So just, that's kind of second witness there. Yeah, and this, I won't go into all the wordiness here. This is just basically what I'm suggesting is, remember, be 100% positive, look for the solutions, look for the silver lining, and it really does pay off. We waste a lot of time if we're being overly negative. Now, that doesn't mean we can't be realistic about whatever the given challenges may be, but let's get focusing on the solutions. Okay, other piece of advice, and I'll show you why this has been something that's really been on my mind, especially over the course of this last year. Sherry Dew, she gave a talk at a devotional, BYU Idaho, not too long ago, talks about engaging in the wrestle and how there's value in the struggle to gain revelation and to work through trials and opposition and difficulty, but then through that we can gain testimonies and become converted to the Savior through the power of His atonement and the inspiration of the Holy Ghost. Well, this kind of resonated with me a lot. I was a wrestler. You can see there, I was totally getting thrashed by this other kid in the local newspaper, Orem newspaper at the time. I wasn't on the right there. That's my youngest son. I wasn't as strong as he is. In wrestling, so I did wrestling kind of all growing up and through high school, as you can see there. So when I was about 16, 110 pounds, when I was fully wet, I had kind of gone through the process of testing myself against all my older brothers, and I had ended up beating all of them. And so then it came to wrestling with my dad, and he's 6'1", 205 pounds, and so, and I was like 5'2", 110. But because I knew some of the technique and leverage and knew some moves I was learning, I started to, kind of getting a little bit of an edge on him. And so then he had to start to cheat. He had to start to tickle me and, or pinch or whatever. And then one day I was, on the couch reading, and he used to do drilling all throughout Latin America, and so and the Arctic, and he had this big Arctic coat, and he was pretending to put it on a hanger, and we were going back and forth, so I kind of was looking at him out of the corner of my eye and starting to tense up. He comes over and he goes, "How you doing, Brenn?" I'm like, "I'm fine, Dad," and then he turned away and then turned back and he kind of growls out, like a big bear, and jumps on top of me, full 205 pounds, right on top of me on the couch. But fortunately, I was kind of ready, so I bridged and rolled out onto the ground and was kind of catching my breath. And then essentially I surged up, and we both heard this big pop. And so then I, before that I thought I was feeling the weight of my dad on top of me. Then I really felt the full dead weight of my father on top of me, and he started to go, "Oh no, oh no." And he rolls limply off of me. Turned out that I'd broken a couple of his ribs. And so of course, at first I'm super scared and worried of what the repercussions might be, but then all of a sudden the thought comes to me, now I am officially the alpha male of the family. So I share that story to give a little backdrop. Fast forward to a few years later, and in the year where this picture was taken, and I was a big soccer player. My dad never missed a soccer game, but he hadn't come to a wrestling match yet, and I was captain of the wrestling team. Later found out that it was just really hard for him to go, watch me wrestle. And I was getting ready for a wrestling match, and your coaches, they want you to get all angry and adrenaline pumping, and then I remember very distinctly, right as I'm about to go on, my dad comes in the door, and we zeroed in on each other, and he came over and told me that he loved me and that he was going to sort of be out there with me in spirit, and that I would hear him yelling for me. And you may have read in the scriptures in Enos and Alma how they had to wrestle before God and with God. So before, my interpretation was that meant that they were sort of arguing and fighting against Heavenly Father. And from that experience with my earthly dad, I realized, no, our Heavenly Father is wrestling with us against whatever that opposition, difficulty, trial may be. And so then kind of last piece of advice is what this leads me to. A really good friend of mine was in similar line of work. He was the mayor of North Ogden. We were both living in Orem and going to college here. He graduated from the Kennedy Center here. He got his major in political science and with a minor in Latin American studies, and I had a major in Latin American studies with taking a bunch of poli-sci classes as part of that. I went on to get a master's in public administration. He went on to get a doctorate, and we started our families together. He has 7 beautiful children. He was, truly, I've shared some cool things. He truly went above and beyond. It was a true public servant. And this last year, if you didn't read or haven't seen in the news, he was targeted because of the difference he was making, and he was killed on his 4th tour to Afghanistan. That picture in the middle was at his going away party at the time. And so I talk about this wrestle, right? And so whatever kind of political environment you find yourself in as you go into the workplace, or whatever kind of difficulties you're struggling with, I'd hope that you might remember this friend of mine. His wife has hashtagged this GRITWITHGRACE. She's found as after his passing that he is still close, and it's been amazing to see how many people literally across the country have reached out to try to help and serve his wife and kids, and her testimony that's inspiring to me, and that I'm still learning to apply and submit to you to apply as well in the workplace and at home and here at school, is that we can have grit and do hard things and figure hard things out and overcome challenges and even work with challenging people because of the grace that and enabling power that we get from the Savior through his atonement. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. Happy to open things up for questions, but
Come up to the microphone like usual, that'd be great.
Hi, thank you for your comments. So this job is one that's super interesting to me. I've talked about it with a few people lately, and I was kind of wondering, I was curious about this before you spoke. I noticed you had been involved with getting the public transit passes for students in Provo and Orem, and that's like a really cool project that I've been interested in. And I was wondering, for a student, like I'm a poli-sci major and an environmental science minor, and I was wondering what opportunities there are in positions like yours to work on projects kind of helping cities become more sustainable or ecologically friendly.
yeah, so most recently, one thing that I helped Orem do was create a citizens commission called our Natural Resources Sustainability Committee. So look for volunteer opportunities with city commissions. Really the way to get yourself in the door is either through volunteering or through an internship. And then as you kind of get into it and see some of what maybe the city or organization wants you to do, then you find your way to add into it the more specific subjects that you're especially passionate about. And so you kind of heard me talking and showing the wide array of different things that cities do. And so the reason why that's so much fun is because you have that ability to essentially add your flavor to whatever you're doing, and so that's what I encourage you to do.
Brenn, maybe you could talk a little bit about how many internship opportunities exist in a city of Orem size, or Provo, or Lehigh, and how to find those opportunities if you're looking for them. They're often not easy to find, and so helping give advice about how to identify those and find them would be useful.
Sure. We need to do a better job of connecting with kind of the career services people here in the universities. I kid you not, I was having a discussion about this with one of my employees today. If you go to, these days, if you go to a city's particular web page and put in the search bar looking for their job board or employment opportunities, you'll get directed to the specific web page that shows the different opportunities. So Provo, I think because of the partnership here with BYU, I bet you they've got a dozen internships going at any given time. Orem, we've got 6 or 8. Usually it'll be kind of dependent on how many departments a city provides. So Lehigh would probably have, another 3 or 4. So.
How many times have you created an internship position that didn't exist because somebody asked for it?
Several times. Yeah, I mean,
talk about that
for an internship.
I think that's what I'm interested in. How aggressive can you be at getting somebody to create an internship for you, and how would you go about that?
So here's part of it. I think that cities typically are looking to see if you're interested in pursuing a master's degree, and or if not that, at least that your major was very kind of city specific. So if you were in like planning, local land use planning type major or classes, then they take that into account. And then what we would do is, essentially we have a wide array of different part-time positions, and if we can see the value of the specific skill set that you would bring, then we can essentially change, exactly what type of specific part-time positions that we would end up with.
So what's kind of the job outlook for city management across the country, and what kind of skills do you suggest us learning right now in college?
Job outlook, I think it's actually looking pretty good right now. And I would say even if there is a slowing down of the economy or a leveling off or even a little bit of a downturn, I think that cities in particular will still be looking to add jobs and specifically add entry-level jobs. Remind me, what was the second half of your question, though?
What skills can make us more marketable?
What skills, yes. Okay, so here's where you guys really are going to kill it. Focus on showing how you can help the communication side. Show them how you already just sort of naturally have a communication specialist skill set. Providing that or that ability for cities is becoming more and more important all the time. You've heard transparency and accessibility. Well, these are kind of real words for cities because there is actually continual forums for the public to directly engage with us. It's not as much like the state or a special service district or the federal government where there's no real actual physical place a lot of times for citizens to go complain. Well, cities do have that, so even if we didn't want to, we do care more about what the public thinks. And so finding and using new ways to easily, quickly get the word out about what we're doing, it's a huge skill set that any city is going to really want. So, and then beyond that, the other skills that you're already learning here. So.
Hi, thank you for your comments. So I'm a graduating senior, so I'm not going to be in the area that much longer, but the longer I'm in Provo, the more I wish I had gotten more involved in the community here. And so what kind of opportunities do you think are best for college students like us who aren't necessarily from Provo-Orem area, but we do want to get involved in the community?
Yeah, it would be single project kind of volunteer opportunities. And so honestly, the cities around here have good relationships with United Way. And so oftentimes you can work with them to do specific projects with cities or with other nonprofit organizations. And we tend to partner a lot with smaller nonprofit organizations. So I guess if keep an eye on, the good cities that are communicating well and that have good Facebook pages. We'll show kind of specific one-off opportunities to volunteer and do, essentially a project that isn't going to last forever. And so that would be the kind of thing you want to look out for.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm looking into, I'm only a freshman, but when I graduate, I'm looking into getting an MPA.
Wonderful.
That seemed to have really impacted your life plan. What would you say, what's it like, and what was it like for you, and what are the benefits in getting a job and my future?
I'll speak specifically to the BYU MPA program.
Sure, yeah.
It's so the whole, come to learn, go forth to serve, it started there. So they really kind of embody, we all do throughout the university here, but I could tell early on that that really was kind of marrow deep in everything that they provided there. So it wasn't just sort of lip service that they cared about you. They really did. And so knowing that, I knew that they were really invested in my success. And so then they helped me, I guess, define what I really wanted to do, which was, have kind of a direct, meaningful impact in helping people's daily lives. And so then that's where they directed me to, an internship opportunity at Lehigh, which then once got there, worked hard, and it built a career from that, and realized this, how much cities do. I could just, I'd never get bored. And then beyond that, similar to what this, I guess, lecture series aims to do, they really focus on applicable knowledge rather than the theoretical side of things, or even really not even really so much the policy side of things as instead kind of how to implement policy once it's given. So that's why I really like the BYU MPA program.
Thank you.
So you do it.
All right.
You won't regret it, even if you do something else.
This is a structural question. So I noticed with you had the PowerPoint about the Orem city government structure.
Yeah.
How does a manager-council system help Orem more than a strong mayor system, just for comparison?
Yeah. I'll kind of refer to the king theory. So when you've got a good mayor and essentially a lot of the power is invested in that position, when you have a good one, he can get a lot of good things, great things done quicker. Obviously, the downside of that is if someone becomes maybe overly self-serving or overly focused on a specific special interest group, then maybe the public at large is forgotten, or another special interest group is forgotten, or maybe sometimes the direction that you end up going is maybe overly politically charged. So on the flip side, the benefit of a manager council form of government is that you have a professional who is essentially paid to be objective, keep the whole kind of interests of the city in mind, report to the entire elected body, and then they've got to reach consensus amongst themselves as a majority to come up with the policy that then the city manager goes and implements.
Thank you.
Main difference. Good question.
Hi, can you tell us about a dispute that you've had with either Provo or the state of Utah or something, how that was resolved?
Sure. Yeah, great question. How about one with Provo? So I mentioned economic development. So, cities to some extent compete a little bit trying to get specific businesses to come into your city, because then that helps improve the tax base of the city to then provide better services. Provo and Orem, and I think this is actually really unique between cities. We actually meet together on at least an every other month basis to essentially compare notes and compare best practices and that sort of thing. But they said they were first. They weren't. But they had proactively reached out to Trader Joe's to come to Provo. And when Trader Joe's, in the end, essentially announced publicly that they were coming to Orem, to University Place, Mayor Curtis and his deputy mayor, they joked in a quote saying, we got Trader Joe's for Orem, and when we were trying to get them to come to Provo, so they owe us, chocolates and flowers or whatever. So then, of course, we couldn't let that just stay like that, and we sent them chocolates and flowers afterwards. So again, and I think that ends up being a good example of taking something where otherwise would be friction, and let's turn it into somehow a positive. Let's make some lemonade out of it.
It's easier when you win.
Yeah, I don't have as good of a story with the county right now. Right now, they're kind of being stinkers with us.
Why don't you tell them about getting sued or
Yeah.
I have a little bit of inside knowledge, so I'll prime you.
Yeah.
You got into trouble, haven't you, Brenn?
Not me specifically. It's the other assistant city manager. So you're lucky you got the good one. Yeah. So essentially, we're in a disagreement with the county. They had an elected official who felt like we weren't giving enough time to both sides of an issue, which was that bus rapid transit system. So truly, our intent was to set up a town hall meeting where anyone could come and learn more about why our mayor and council had made their decision to essentially partner with UTA and UDOT on allowing the bus rapid transit system to go through our city. And the argument on the other side was that we weren't giving the opponents to that enough time in our meeting, which the meeting never even ended up happening. It's sort of this chicken and egg argument with them. They're wrong, we're right. No, no, we're working it out, and again, as in terms of application, we will always have reasons to work with the county as well. We work with them on grant opportunities. In fact, they gave a $250,000 grant award to our All Together Playground. So you got to put those lawsuits aside sometimes to get good things done.
You can't afford to make enemies that stay enemies.
Not permanently. We can disagree, but hopefully it's with the intent to ultimately find what the best solution is. Both come away better from it.
Hi, can you speak about the growth plan that Orem City has? I know that Utah's population's expected to just blow up, and especially in Utah County. So just
Yeah.
wanted to hear about that.
Yeah, so right now projections are that Utah County is supposed to become bigger than Salt Lake County, or at least as big as Salt Lake County in the next 30, 40 years. So we've actually been engaging in kind of an effort we call Imagine Orem. And so usually, remember kind of the cat falling to sleep? When we're talking planning stuff, eyes glaze over, people fall asleep. You're lucky to get 30 to 40 people out to a meeting, and usually those 30 and 40 people are only the angry people. Well, so what we've done is we got food, and we got VR glasses, and we got a compelling solution kind of combined together, and we've had, through this process, 400 plus people coming out to these open house meetings. And now we're in the process of doing some new zoning along State Street. You saw that picture of what we're doing with State Street. So our compelling story to our public is, right now we're at the cusp of urbanism in Orem. So we've been very suburban for very long. Well, and we're essentially built out, so now we need to build up. Well, when you've built your single family home and you love the view of the mountains, you're going to be worried about that view and all of those people coming and living right next to you. So essentially what we've said is, well, we're going to do our zoning in a way where we're going to condense or densify that growth along this main corridor, and then that'll make businesses flourish better, and will also create an opportunity for people to walk to where they want to go or use mass transit. So that message has really resonated well with our public.
So where is that corridor? Because there's that controversy of where the center of Orem is, whether it's next to University Place or whether it's up near the city buildings.
Yeah,
Is the corridor there in the
Yeah.
Center Street area, or?
Yeah, so in Orem, so it's along State Street. Orem historically hasn't had kind of the same vibrant downtown sort of feel that Provo has had along Center Street. So what we've identified as our downtown is on one bookend is University Place, the other bookend is our city center, and it's about a mile stretch along State Street. And in between there is that MIDTOWN 360 and the Sierra theater and those types of things.
Good. I think we'll have to treat that as the last question because I think we're basically out of time. Join me in thanking Brenn.
Thank you.